Alright, in this video, I'm going to be going over the SPY detailed best sell credit strategy that I believe exists not only in the SPY, but out of any option symbol that you can find in the entire stock market. And so, before we get into the numbers and the specifics of the actual strategy, the first three facts that I want to go over is that when you're using a sell buy credit strategy where the sell is more than the buy, or you're just selling naked options, you're always safer to do it in an index versus an individual equity. And that's because the individual equity has a larger potential to move in either direction at any time. So for example, Tesla has just been crazy for the last year or whatever, but there was one day where I was watching Tesla where it goes up 5% in a day, comes down negative 8% where it's negative 3%, goes back up to the 5% positive, and just moving all over the place in a day. You won't ever see that in the SPY. You will see some up and down movement, just not that large of a swing. And the larger the swing is basically where our potential to lose in this strategy comes from. And so we're always looking for the smallest amount of swing. And you can find that in the indexes, and this can be proven by looking at historical performance of indexes versus individual equities. Secondly, they are less liquid, so individual equities, they don't have as much volume, and so if you're throwing a bunch of money into a sell credit strategy and you were to create some type of advanced safety features, for example, let's say that if the SPY comes down 20 points, you are going to start losing money at the 20-point loss. Well, some people may create a strategy where after the first 10 points have been lost, if it ever sees that, then it's designed to come in and buy more options so that if the movement continues to happen, that next 10 points actually creates a profit versus creating the loss that you were originally stuck in. And so because the SPY has the most volume out of any index, any option, any symbol, that is another feature to where you can basically have the ability to close out your trade before it loses its maximum value and or buy additional options to offset what the losses may have been. And then thirdly, this strategy is the only strategy that I believe you'll be able to find where basically you can execute it 30 minutes after the trade opens, and it always expires in the day that you make the trade. And so what I'm getting at is you're never carrying the trade overnight, because anything can happen on the next following day. The market shoots up or down, and that's where the danger and the risk comes from. And while the market is closed to its open, you have no ability to get out or hedge that bet, and you're really stuck with whatever happens in that moment. So, with those simple facts, we will go ahead and we'll accept those as all good reasons why this is a solid argument. But now let's go to the math and see what you're looking for, what you're trying to compare that you won't find other places that you will find here. So I bought in a lot of data, and this is from the CBOE. Basically, it was 1 minute tick data or 1 minute data for the SPY, and I filtered it to where it's only giving me the bid and the ask pricing of the option that is expiring on the same day that it expires. So on 4/5, if you're buying the expiration option of 4/5/2019, these are the bid and ask prices at 9:53 a.m. and these are the strikes that correlate it, and the underlying stock at 9:53 was right at 288. So what we're going to see is that the opportunity that presents itself and continually presents itself, actually I'll go to the top one first, is basically, so at this one it's 4/03/2019, and this was at 10 a.m. and and the underlying stock was 286.55. So if we come right here, this was basically the underlying stock price, and this is a strike price, and the bid and ask that matches. And so this is basically what you'd call at the money, and then anything above it you'd call out of the money, and anything below it you'd call out of the money. One is out of the money for gains, and one is out of the money for losses in the underlying stock price. So if we look at this guy, what I have found is that from the at the money strike, you can go 1, 2, 3, 4 strikes out, which is so if you look at the SPX or the SPY, basically that's 2 points, or it's 20 points in the SPX, but it's 2 points going by this guy. So 286.5, every strike goes by 0.5, so it's 286, 285.5, and then 285, and then 284.5, and then 284 and 283.5. Well, at the 284.5, if the bid and the ask spread are not right next to each other, for example, the 1 and 2 cents, there are no half cents, but because it's 8 and 10 cents, the middle of this would be 9 cents. So you can use a limit order to catch the mid price in between both of them. It's always beneficial if you're selling contracts to do it, and it's always beneficial to find the mid price if you're buying contracts, because you're paying less for the buy and you're gaining more in your sell credit if you sell at 9. So when you sell, you get the bid price. When you buy, you get the ask price. If you do the mid price, then you're always getting the mid price for either the buy or the sell. So what we will see is that at the 284.5 strike, or better stated, at 2 points away from the current underlying strike, inside the first 30 minutes of the market open, on the same option that's expiring that day. So the SPY has an option expiring every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday every single week. If there's a holiday, the Friday will get bumped to a Thursday. But inside these expiration days, we're going to see this 2 point away strike, and we're always going to see that the bid price is going to be 2 cents higher than the ask price of the very next strike. Okay? Now you'll see a lot of that in the strikes before this, and on different days you'll see that the prices are a little bit different, but you'll see that this guy is, the bid price is 7, the ask price is 5, so I can sell here, I can buy here, and I'll still have a 2 cent spread, and that's where our profit's coming from. Where if we look right here at the next one, this sell I could sell at 4, but this buy I could buy at 4. So if I bought 1,000 of these at $4 a piece, it'd be $4,000, and I buy 1,000 of these at $4 a piece, that'd be $4,000. There's a 0 profit potential if I were to sell this strike and buy this strike. But again, 1, 2, 3, 4, we'll find that the bid price always is 2 cents higher than the ask price. Okay, so there are a little bit nuances in the stock market. Well, you'll see this is 8 and 10 with a mid price that you can limit order at. This is 4 and 6, where on this day it was 7 and 8 and 4 and 5. So they're always really close to each other, but never quite perfect. And I think that has something to do with the volume or the monthly expiration versus the weekly expirations. So you always have one on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and in theory they call them all weekly expirations. But all of these expiration dates are, a lot of these expiration dates are monthly, and so basically they've existed for over a year, and every month they get closer to their actual day of expiration. And I believe that that's somewhere where the nuances derive from. Anyways, let's get back to the point. So in this, if I use the limit order and I found the mid price, I'm able to get $9,000 as a sell credit in here, meaning if it does not break this 284.5, so it's at 286.5 right now, if it does not come below the 284.5, I make 100% of whatever my sell credit potential is. But at the same time, if it does not break the 284 and come below the 284, then I lose 100% of my $5,000. Basically saying that as long as it does not come down too far, then I'm guaranteed to make $4,000. Now, now we need to understand what that $4,000 means. So let's go down here. Basically, in order to calculate your max loss, if you have a sell and a buy strategy, all you have to do is go to the buy that's further out of the money and assume that's where the price ends. So change in underlying stock is 284, which is where we bought the $5,000 worth of credit. And you use a simple formula, which is right here, to determine the price. And so if I take the change in underlying minus the strike that I sold at times the number of contracts times 100, because each contract is 100 stocks, plus the actual credit that I'm guaranteed to gain, that becomes my new maximum loss. And so in this maximum loss, at the 284, my maximum loss is $41,000. Well, if it's at 284, then basically I take that same formula, but I subtract the $5,000 because I bought instead of sold this option. It creates that at the 284, that's my maximum loss. Anything below this in my 284 would gain money, but because we bought the same number of contracts as we sold, as this grows in value past the 284, this loses the same amount of value. So anywhere at 284 or below, my net loss, my maximum loss is always going to be this $46,000. Now, if we compare our maximum gain potential to our maximum loss potential, we will see that the gain rate, ROI percent, is 8.69%. So assuming that the $46,000 was your total account balance or the total you are willing to risk in one trade, that means you're making 8.69% of what you're willing to risk, which would require 8.28 times repeating this strategy to gain $46,000, assuming that you're reinvesting your gains. So basically, if I make $4,000 today, then the next time I make this trade, this is going to be at $50,000 max loss, and my max gain is going to be, instead of $4,000, maybe $4,400 or something, right? And after 8 days of repeating this trade, then I would have made up my full $46,000, which was my maximum loss scenario. So it's all about how long it takes to double your money. And that's all about the rule of 72. If you don't know what the rule of 72 is, I recommend you Google it, because understanding that is hugely important before you need to understand options. It's hugely important for investing in general. Now, on most days, you won't find this, and so I believe that this is like a monthly option rather than a weekly one, and that's why the rates are a little bit skewed. But on these 2 days, you'll see that they're almost identical, and they're two separate days. All the prices are much closer, and there really is no chance for a mid-price. I mean, even at the closer strikes, you won't see any chances for mid-price here or here or here, and they're all just 1 penny away. Meaning that if I sell this guy and I buy this guy, like if I come in and I buy one option here, it's going to cost me $54, and then I can come back and sell it for $53 instantaneously. And so you lose a little bit of money, but the idea is that people like to trade the SPY because there's so little cost to trade the options. But anyways, if we come down 4 strikes, we'll get down to 286 because the underlying stock was at 288. And you will be able to create the $1,500 potential this time. Our loss potential went up a little bit, 48.5. And this is basically the low end. So the high end was 8.8% in a day. The low end is 3% in a day. In this scenario, it would take 23 transactions to double your money. And it would take roughly 7 3/4 weeks, or roughly 2 months. Because we get 3 opportunities every single week to repeat this trade, because the SPY has 3 expiration days per week. Now, that is the strategy. This is, I mean, I've been looking at the stock market every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when it opens, and it repeats itself. This 2 cent spread. So even though the prices are different here, if you look at 7 and 5, you got your 2 cent spread. Even though the prices are different here, it's 5 and 3, but you still got your 2 cent spread, and that's all that we're really caring about. And so as long as we can catch our 2 cent spread, that's the goal. And my argument is that you won't find any other index which moves less than the equities, which is why we're trading the index and not the equities. But you won't find any other index that is this far out the money where the bid price outweighs the ask price, allowing you to create this net credit strategy and causing a 0.86% change from the time that you buy it to hit your maximum loss in the same day that you buy it. Because remember, it's expiring the same day that you buy it, 30 minutes after the open. So you've already missed the big open swing, one direction or the other. And now you just got to survive the next 6 hours before it expires, and you get 100% of your credit, assuming that it doesn't break these limits. Now, the last thing that I want to go over to help people understand the margin and understand why this is a little bit more detailed than some might think is that this is the most common thing that you're going to see is people that are selling for credits. They're typically selling naked options deep out of the money, and they don't really understand how to maximize the margin. And so although it doesn't really have much to do with the movement or anything, the margin is really what's limiting people's gain potential. And so let's say that somebody came in here, sold 1,000 contracts here, and they got $9,000 that they can make. Well, in order to come out and sell a naked $9,000 worth of SPY, you gotta, for a portfolio margin account, you look up 8%, down 6%, whatever your max loss is in that entire range, that is the maximum margin limits that you can have. Meaning that if I want to make $9,000 every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, a 6% down movement, which is never going to happen, so you're not necessarily worried about losing this money, but a 6% down movement is going to require that I have $1.5 million in my bank account. Now, you're not really saying that you're risking $1.5 million, but you are saying you got to have that to even think about playing that much money. And so if it were to come down at the 284, which is the same scenario that we had earlier, you still have a $41,000 loss potential compared to the $9,000 gain potential. But again, based off what you have in your account balance, the maximum margin allowance is 0.5%, which is roughly 500% less than our worst case scenario and 2,000% less than our best case scenario, meaning that it would take 123 different days of winning in order to double your account balance. And that would be roughly 41 weeks. Now, the last thing that I want to go over in the margin is that a lot of people will be like, oh, well, if you got a strike at 284.5, and why don't you just buy 1,000 contracts at the 283.5 because now you're getting a 6-cent credit spread. Well, the problem there is that because you took out a whole nother strike below, and we look at your maximum loss from here, you now have a $93,000 maximum loss. So even in the best case scenario where this one was 8.69% opportunity, by taking it a strike out, increasing your gain potential, you've also increased your loss potential, now making it a 7.52% gain rather than the 8.6. So taking strikes out and separating the buy versus the sell in a larger amount of strikes to get a larger credit rating doesn't actually help you in any way, because all that really matters is the amount you can gain versus the amount that you're able to lose in that single given trade. And let's see if there's anything in here that needs to be stated. Looks like I stated all that. Yeah, so that's it. That is why this is the single best sell credit strategy in the entire stock market, and it's because it has the best gain potential to the loss potential for the margin requirements that you can find in the entire stock market. And it's also repeatable Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, where the only other option that has multiple weekly expiration dates is the NASDAQ, and that's only Wednesdays and Fridays. But again, it doesn't have this opportunity that I just showed you here because the prices aren't as strong and aren't as consistent. And so everything else other than the NASDAQ and the SPY only has Friday expiration options, meaning that even if you were to find a good opportunity in there, you still don't have the opportunity to actually make a decent amount of money because you only get 50 opportunities a year, where this is going to give you 150 opportunities a year, and it's going to be anywhere between 23 to 8 opportunities a time to double your money that you have in your account balance or double the money that you're willing to risk. Now, I will go over one more thing. If you already have saved up money and you're looking to use this strategy as an opportunity for income, basically what you could do is, let's say you have $200,000 that you've been saving up in your 401k or whatever. But what you can do is you can take, and let's say that you want to have $5,000 be, so let's say that you want to make, if we're making $400 a day and you want to make $1,200 a week as your living income, but you only have $200,000 to last $1,200 a week every day for the rest of your life, well, then what you do is you use this strategy and you only do a maximum risk of 4,600. So this strategy will not win every time. I have some ways of making it better, which I'm not going to share with you because this is my strategy, not yours. But the whole idea is that if you have $200,000 and you don't know how to build in some safety features that make it to where even on the days that you potentially lose, you actually turn that into a win also. This will allow you to accept the loss because you can now lose how many times? This divided by this, you'd be able to lose 43 different days in a row before losing $200,000. And this guy right here, this strategy itself, if you ran it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you'll probably lose maybe a dozen times a year at max, not even that much though. Like, I mean, it would have to be a super volatile market, and yeah, I just don't see it happening. I've watched, since I've fully developed this strategy maybe 2 months ago, I've watched every single day and it hasn't lost yet. So for 2 months straight, it's won every single day. There's one thing that I will show as far as one of the strategies to make this better is that in this example where this guy was 1,000, so you never lose more money than the movement happening right away. So the maximum loss is when it just drops all 20 points right away, and there's been no theta loss because the theta loss is where you're collecting your money on a sell credit strategy. And as time passes, that's where the theta is being lost. So inside here, if it was to drop the 20 points right away, or no, this is 15 points. So rather than waiting it to go the full 20 at our maximum loss, we're only letting it drop 1.5 points. And in this scenario, you've only lost $13,500 so far. So if you've only lost $13,500 and your max loss was $46,000, then maybe you should just set a stop loss at the negative 1.5 points. And in that way, if you do lose, even if we had this at the 4,600 earlier, you would have only lost $1,200, which would have set this guy up to lose 400 times without you losing all your money. So you could create a stop loss based off seeing the movement before the market closes and not letting it hit your maximum loss. But there's also ways to gauge the first 30 minutes of open to determine if it's a day that you even want to mess with. And that's about as much as I'm going to go over right now. If you guys have any questions, I may entertain answering them if they are well thought out and not me just giving away everything I know. But I do want to educate people and let them know that there are better ways, and the stock market's not that hard. And that's the biggest thing is once you understand what you're playing with, the margin, the market movement are the only things that matter when you're doing a sell credit strategy that you want to repeat long term. You just want to understand how the margin works and understand how the movement potential works. And then from there, you just got to find the math that creates the actual best strategy. And I'm already giving it to you, so half your work is done. Now, if you're buying options all about timing it correctly and buying in low, getting in and selling high. And that is much more complex, and I'll make some videos about that later. Thank you for your time, guys. Hope you enjoy.